How are you doing, people? This is Doc. I'm here. I'm excited. And I think you guys should be excited too because who I have here today is one of the members of the best podcast, the best New Japan podcast. I don't care if that gets me in trouble. The best New Japan podcast, the best Puro Resu podcast, just the best. He is not a fan. He's actually in the business. He is young boy
No, that's not
Joshua.
true.
Young boy Josh Smith. How you doing, bro?
Good, Doc. I'm luckily you caught me. I'm taking a mental health day. I thought I'd be at work right now, but caught myself in between some downtime, so I figured, hey, let's hit up Doc. I know he's got a project going, and I'm happy to participate, contribute to it. So I'm excited to chat. I thought it was funny you said you said we're the best New Japan podcast, and funny enough, there's a New Japan fan group, like not for us, but just for New Japan on Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the dudes in there was like, "Who's got the best New Japan podcast?" So people are like, "Oh, JCast, blah blah blah," and everyone's giving their stuff. One dude's like, "Fuck Keep It Strong Style, they're the worst podcast," and he was like, "The B mic guy is always trying to derail the show with his jokes that don't land," and I was like, "Is he talking about me?
I, you
I guess I'm
know,
Jeremy's sidekick now."
I guess so, man.
Uh,
Because I mean, some people don't get the humor. I get the humor. I'm a pretty crass guy. I guess I'm pretty crass. I don't think so. I think you're a pretty good guy, man. I like your jokes. I laugh. They make me tee hee. And yeah,
I appreciate that.
yeah. So
Yeah, I always hope that I hope it lands, but really it's more so to pop Jeremy than anything else, because I don't really take the audience into consideration, because usually it's just a chat between me and him or whatever. But you definitely are known for your humor on our Discord. You've got a unique flavor to you, so I always get it. I get where you're coming from anytime I see you making doing troll jobs and shit like that.
hey, I'm just trying to have a conversation, man, because some people are pretty uptight when it comes to like this business, as some people would say, and like when you think about like what pro wrestling is, like it's a farce. I don't know if people notice about you, but beyond just being a fan of pro wrestling, you're also like a historian of like combat sports, MMA, boxing, and pro wrestling, and to me all of that is kind of like wrapped up to one. So like I think like one of the posts you did a little back ago was like about George Hackenschmidt and stuff, and like that stuff is fascinating to me. Finding the roots of the sport, and it goes back to like actual hand to hand, mano a mano combat. And my question,
Yeah, I love that stuff.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. What's your question?
well, like, oh yeah, so you love that stuff. So like my question is like, so how did you first get into pro wrestling, and like why did it appeal to you so much?
Oh yeah, certainly. So, before I jump into that question, one thing I just want to point out, podcasts out there, Pro Wrestling History Nerds. If you've never checked those guys out, they're fucking awesome. They've got really, really good in-depth research and insights to like the pioneer era of pro wrestling, and
Oh, that.
they are one of the guys, Chongo Bronson. They're both I forget who it is. It's Nick Gossert and Chongo Bronson. They're both pro wrestling promoters out in Denver.
Mm.
Um, I think one of them does like Lucha Libre Laugh, and the other guy does one of the other bigger companies out there. They're both former pro wrestlers, and they both are MMA and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioners. So they know a lot about the actual techniques and everything like that. So they've got a lot of really good insight, especially when they're talking about like catch style wrestling and evolution of that shit from like the early 1900s and late 1800s, stuff like that.
Oh man,
As far
yeah.
as me,
Seeing
my
those
life, I've
seeing
oh
those
go ahead.
seeing those pictures of those guys rolling on a freaking shag, not even a shag carpet, just a carpet. Those pictures, you ever see those, like those
Yeah.
black and white? Like that always makes me like, oh man, that's some hardcore stuff. Just getting dropped on carpet with like probably just like hardwood on the bottom, and you guys are just like rubbing. That's exciting to me. So go ahead. Sorry, then interrupt you.
Well, like early wrestling didn't have rings.
Yeah.
They pretty much were. It was performed in opera houses and, like you said, on carpets with very little padding, if any at all. Most of the time, it was just a hardwood floor. And there's a famous story. I don't know if you know Colonel James H. McLaughlin.
No, I don't. But
Yeah,
please
yeah, yeah,
teach me.
that's his name. He was Okay, so he was the first preeminent wrestling star in North American history. He specialized in the collar elbow style,
Hmm.
like in the like in the 1870s. And the first tournament that they ever had in the States where a championship was like crowned and there was a belt given took place in New York. Actually, I could have some of these dates and times mixed up, but I'm just going off the dome. And it was a one night tournament, and he ended up in the finals with a guy by the last name of Smith. I forget the guy's name. And most of wrestling back then still was worked with,
Yeah.
with actual catch techniques, but collar elbow wrestling, the whole entire point was to throw the guy. Very similar to judo. It wasn't about getting a pin; it was about lifting them and getting like 3 points on the ground was a throw. So you needed to get like two shoulders and a hip basically, or
Okay.
that's the whole point. They needed to land basically flat back, and it got contentious this match. I don't know if there was like a dispute about who was supposed to go over or whatever the fuck happened. He ended up throwing this dude so many times that he actually threw, and they weren't ending the match. So they were in opera house. He's on top of a stage, and he threw him into the opera pit, and dude ended up dying.
Damn.
Like later that night, he got like a really bad concussion, and the way the story goes, it's like he was like found wandering through the streets, like kind of speaking gibberish, and they took him to the hospital, and he died. And that was like the genesis of the first golden title that was ever awarded to anybody in the states to like crown a wrestling champion in North America. Uh, and he was like the preeminent star, like before William Muldoon, and before William Muldoon in New York and Greco kind of took over. Colonel James H. McLaughlin, he was like the big star in North America. He was in all the newspapers. He was like the first Hulk Hogan, basically, in North America.
Damn. He's hardcore. He's hardcore.
Yeah, he ended up. Apparently, the whole thing was an accident though, and he ended
Yeah.
up giving his purse to the widow and apologizing, making like a very public display. I don't think it was like intentional, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's a very unfortunate incident. You can Google it, probably find the more specific facts about it. Interesting stuff. But for me, like my wrestling fandom, I really don't remember a time where wrestling wasn't like a preeminent part of my life. I grew up in a household where my dad and my brother and both sides of my family like grew up watching wrestling. I was born in Detroit, so like my dad grew up on like the Detroit scene, like watching like Boa Brazil and the Sheik and all those guys.
Oh
And
no.
my
That's
brother, who
yeah.
is oh go ahead.
Oh no. Yeah. That's pretty sick, man. Keep going.
Well, my brother, my dad, me and my older brother, we don't share the same dad. So like
Hmm.
when my mom and my father got together, my brother was already like 12ish, something like that. So it's like a stepfather sort of situation, and it was very contentious. But I think the thing that they found common ground in is professional wrestling because on my mom's side of things, we're all Hispanic and native. So there's a lot of like know, they always talk about how like minorities, especially in the like olden days, were attracted to pro wrestling and marketed to. So like I've got a lot of family that like was in Texas, grew up watching like lucha libre and stuff like that. So there was sort of that common ground with them. WWF was blowing up in the late '80s, becoming very very popular. Same
Mm-hmm.
with Crockett, and that was sort of like the foundation of their relationship. And then I was born. I was literally in my mom's womb in Detroit when Ric Flair lost the NWA World's title to Ronnie Garvin at Cobo Arena when
Whoa.
Ronnie Garvin came off the top rope and him with the sunset flip.
Oh, that's crazy, man.
So like technically, I wasn't born yet, but like I was there.
Oh, it's similar. Similar for me on both sides of my family. My uncle, my uncle on my dad's side was super into pro wrestling. He was in the Philippines. I guess they were able to get into like WWF. I'm not sure how, but like his guys were
Mm-hmm.
like George the Animal Steel, like Bobo. He was into Bobo. He was into Bruno, of course. Those guys, and like
Yeah.
his real guy was like Mil Mascaras and Tiger Mask. Those are his guys. Because I'm gonna tell that story in a little bit, but and also like on my mom's side, my mom particularly, she and her brothers loved also WWF, and I'm not sure how they got that in the Philippines, but I know my mom talked about she went to so my uncle, he was in the Navy, right? So he brought my mom over, and they were in I think they stayed over in West Virginia. And that's where my mom first made her first steps in America, and like her first one of her first things was to go to New York so she can go to Madison Square Garden. And the match that she watched, that was her match because her guy is Bob Backlund, was Backlund Snuka cage match. And whenever I go, like I ask my mom,
Oh, I
like,
love that match.
there's something animalistic about that, and like when I go back and I watch it, I think about my mom, and like I think about like because my mom passed away unfortunately, and like whenever she talked about like because
Mm,
she's like a small Filipino nurse lady, so like lovely person, right? Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful little woman, and then like she got a sparkle in her eye thinking about Jimmy Snuka with blood on his face, with the intent to murder Bob Backlund by jumping off the cage and crushing him, and like that's always funny to me about how my mom, this like super pious Catholic Filipino woman, loved watching Bob Backlund fight for his life. Yeah,
Well,
and
I don't know if you remember, like when Bob Backlund like came back in '94, right?
yeah,
He they would show the videos of him as champion and some of the recaps of stuff he because he'd been gone for 10 years. The audience didn't remember him, and I remember watching that shit on like Superstars,
mm,
and it's like most of WWF. You like, for instance, if you watch something from like 2007 and then 2017,
yeah,
they don't look that different. Like the presentation, like you can kind of tell, but it's very similar. But if you watch 1984 or something from Madison Square Garden from back then, then you
yeah,
watch 1994 WWF,
yeah.
they don't even seem like they seem like 20 years apart in terms of the presentation. And I remember watching some of those clips, and they would show when Snuka came off the cage, Backlund moved, pulled around, Harley Race said, "I'll move," and they fucking crawled out of the cage. And I was like, I thought that finish was so incredible. And then like I remember about a decade ago, I finally got a chance to watch that on probably YouTube or something.
Yeah.
And it's not like a great match, but I fucking love it because Snuka is just beating the shit out of Bob Backlund. He takes literally like 85% of the offense, and he looks like a god, and the crowd is just going crazy for him. And he could have just walked out, but he goes to the top of the cage. He misses. It's his own hubris. Bob Backlund escapes, which like it is a kind of weird booking considering
Yeah.
Snuka's the heel, Bob's the babyface. Bob gets his ass beat. He never comes back, and he basically just barely survives the heel Snuka. It's super strange booking. I love the match
It
anyways, and
works, man. It
it's
works.
one of those things where it's like it just looks like it's from a Yeah,
Like it's from a whole bygone
it looks
era.
like it's from a whole different world.
Yeah, it's like you see. I think also like that adds to it is like like how like the lighting around the ring, like the darkened arena, and like you see shadows, right? You're not like really seeing like their faces like full on in HD. You're seeing shadows around their faces. You're seeing the grimacing. You're
Yeah,
seeing all that shit, and that shit is that's dope to me, man. Like, cause like I think a lot
yeah.
of yeah. Go
When I
ahead.
was growing up, that's the.
Sorry, man. You're cutting out.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you were cutting out, man. Go ahead.
It might be my. It could be my internet. I apologize. I think we
Oh,
have a slight delay. But
yeah,
what I was saying is that yeah, my family, that whole era, my parents and like my brother would tell me about it even when I was a young age. So they would talk about like the Don Morocco and like Ricky Steamboat karate fight,
oh
which
yeah.
I've never seen that match, but I just remember them telling me about that shit. Um, and they talked a lot about superstar Billy Graham and he became the karate guy, and I have seen some of that stuff, which is fucking hilarious.
Oh man,
But
he
yeah, like
wears.
my family grew up watching WWF and
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh no, no, he wears that stupid karate gi and he's bald and he's doing like karate chops. Like karate.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous.
It's also weird because
But
Ricky Steamboat
you
was
know,
there, doing the same thing but better.
right.
Yeah.
But then like for me, I grew up on Hulk Hogan. That was my first like big guy. That's who I loved, and I mean like, I had every Hulk Hogan toy, wrestling buddy. I had like, I
Ooh.
think the first wrestling figure I ever had was actually a Hulk Hogan shampoo bottle, like a giant shampoo bottle that was his silhouette. I would go around the house like banging it into shit.
Oh yeah,
And
dude. It was Ultimate
we
Warrior
had
and a Hulk
tapes
Hogan
that
shampoo
I
bottle.
watched.
I had that too when I had
I
hair.
think I had both of those. I had yeah, I had the Warrior one, and Warrior was my other guy as well. Which is like, it's really weird because like I'm born in '88. I
Oh,
feel like I shouldn't
yeah.
have memories from like being 2 or 3. That seems too young. But I remember the excitement of Warrior versus Hogan in 1990, and I'm like 2. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how I remember that, but I definitely do.
Oh,
It's fucking
yeah.
weird how like a developmental wrestling story. Like growing up, we had 2 tapes. We had on VHS. We had a collection, the Best of Starrcade, 1983 to 1987,
Sick.
which like for a lot of people, yeah, it's like the holy grail. It had a lot of the best matches from those eras, and I watched those on repeat almost every day growing up. And then we had a Betamax tape of Best of Hulk Hogan. It was like from his '84 reign, and I don't remember a lot on that tape, but I know that there's a match with David D. Schultz from Minneapolis that's really underrated
Oh
that you
yeah.
can find on the network if you know how to fucking navigate Peacock. But that's like what I watching. I grew up watching Flair and Race in the Cage, Piper
The dog collar.
and fucking and yeah, the dog collar match with Valentine. I grew up on the Funks versus Steamboat and Blood, and Ronnie Garvin and Ric Flair in the Cage. Half match with you know uh, Jim Cornette falling in and hitting the
Breaking his
Big
legs.
Bubba Rogers missing him. I grew up on the Rock and Roll Express. Yeah, all of that shit. Magnum and Tully. So like I was watching, and I thought everybody like I didn't know that this was rare stuff or underseen. I thought like everybody kind of had the same kind of formative experience of watching Jim Crockett in these dimly lit, Omni and Greensboro Coliseum watching this shit, but like really they didn't. Like it was kind of something unique to me. Not a lot of people my age saw that stuff.
Yeah, man. I think also we when we conflate these like memories, like if you have of like Hogan versus Warrior in Toronto and Hulk Hogan in general, it's just like because we also grew up with those tapes, Coliseum Video, and like
Hmm.
I grew up with like the Hulkamania compilation that had like Mr. Perfect versus Hogan, and then Sid and Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper, or like older tapes. Like my mom did get a best of Bob Backlund Betamax also, and or
Oh wow.
I also had like a Sergeant Slaughter tape, and I think my first WCW tape was WCW Super Show '91 with I think that was Ric Flair and Tatsumi Fujinami at the Dome, and that's also
Oh, okay. So the Tokyo Dome show.
yeah, but it was like a Turner Classic thing. I wore that thing out. It was I wore that thing out, that one, and I got it was a double, so I got the '91 and '92, and I think I got them like in '93. But I would watch those back to back. So
Hmm.
that was my introduction to New Japan. And like yeah, growing up, it was like the Hulkamania tapes, uh, watching whatever NWA, and well, they became WCW already by the time by the time I could form a thought, like when I was actually becoming a person. And
Right.
my uncle also had like the Tiger Mask Dynamite Kid tapes. He had Bill Mascaras because statute of limitations already. He so my uncle came over allegedly, allegedly, allegedly came over through Tijuana, and so the people that he was with, like he went to shows like in Tijuana, like, and it was like Rey Mysterio Senior. He went to those shows and like was able to like see because he saw a 12-year-old Rey Mysterio, he saw young Conan, young Psychosis, all working in Tijuana, and he kind of also gave me that love of like lucha too because he said like, oh, balong, that means like son, like in my language, right? Hey, balong, let's watch the Spanish network. I think it's Galavision. We're gonna watch. They call it lucha libre, and that's how I was able to watch like AAA back in the day because they used to air on Galavision. And yeah, man,
Right.
it's interesting to see like how your family or your people that you look up to can help shape your fandom. Because not a lot of people like that
Yeah.
have the same
My
kind of story like we have of being second generation
yeah, my
fans.
my grandfather on my mom's side, so my Willow, he knew I was a big wrestling fan as well, and he lived in Texas and at different times in California as well. So he would tape like WCW shows, like pay-per-views, but he'd also tape like Galavision and send AAA shows to me. He also sent me
Yeah,
what's it called? Glow. He'd send me Glow shows too.
I love
So
Glow.
he'd send me like VHSs in the tape. Bro, I fucking a few years ago, and it's
Gorgeous
gone now,
ladies
but
of wrestling.
on Pluto they had what's that?
Gorgeous ladies of wrestling. I love that stuff, man. The rap, they should bring that back. They should be like
They
AEW should bring that back.
I hadn't they did have it on airing on Pluto.
Yeah,
They had started a thing called the Pro Wrestling Channel for a bit, and it had like Evolve and different like indies, Defy and shit like that. But then they'd also have Glow on there, and I'd turn it on and I'd get high and I'd watch Glow for like hours. It was just incredible stuff that I'd never really seen, but they don't air it anymore. But I love that. I think it's incredible. But yeah, my grandfather he sent tapes to that stuff. He also sent me stuff from like AWA. So like I actually saw some early Medusa and some early Jerry Martell, and actually I think there was some follow-ups to Glow that were like Wow, like the early Wow. I don't even know what names those companies were, but he sent me
yeah.
some of the tapes of them. I don't have any of them anymore. Yeah, I saw some of the early AAA. I don't even remember who any of the wrestlers were or what he had sent to me. But yeah, I had some exposure to that stuff too. And yeah, like you're mentioning with WCW, like WCW starts in '88, but they're still calling it NWA. So my whole family's calling it NWA. Like
Yeah,
up until like '93, it's still kind of just NWA. Like yeah, it's like WCW NWA. Same way you talk about like TNA NWA because like they still had the NWA titles, like they were still in the same territories, and they still were referring to it as NWA on and off, at different periods throughout that whole period. So it's fucking weird.
Yeah, it's weird. And then like you have like the whole transition to when Ric Flair left, and then the NWA title becomes the international title, and then like it's a whole thing. So like
As a fan, one thing that's always interested me, and I think is weird, and this might pique your interest too, is like, okay, how do we determine, and this is actually relevant to what's going on this weekend with WrestleMania. They're
yeah,
talking about John Cena's about to surpass Flair's, record, 16 title reigns or whatever. Real wrestling fans know that Flair has like a lot more title reigns
I
that
think
are
it's like
unrecognized than that.
24,
But like,
25 because he dropped it like in Japan and Puerto Rico like a couple times.
right, and that's where it starts getting contentious because it's like, which of those does it count when he like dropped it to Jack Veneno or when he dropped it to Harley in New Zealand? I almost kind of argue no, those don't count if the company didn't recognize them and everything like that. But here's where it gets really weird. The two very contentious periods for me are NWA WCW title thing
Mm.
in the early 90s because he's dual recognized, but it's the same championship reign. And we're used to that sort of thing in boxing, but we're not used to that sort of thing in professional wrestling. And how do you distinguish which title was a title reign in and of itself? Same thing happens in 1994 and 1993 when the WCW or when the NWA title, then they have the NWA WCW international title, and then it's just and then it gets fucking weird, that whole thing, because they have to figure out how to merge those reigns. Like, for instance, when he's the international champion and he merges the belt on Saturday night with
Sting.
Sting,
Yeah.
is that a whole new title, or is that we don't know.
Yeah, because like they did that thing
It's
with
weird.
Roman where they merged the Universal and WWE belt, and like you don't know like which one is which, or like even going into like
Great.
New Japan when Brock left, and then so like Brock was New Japan IWGP the legit champion, and then he left, and then he lost that. They unrecognized it. Tanahashi won the first New Japan Cup, became world champion, and then later on down the line, Kurt Angle actually won the belt, and Yuji Nagata won the fake belt, the fake real belt from
Yeah.
Kurt Angle, and it's all like jumbled up. So, so like part of like the whole title history is like you try to look for the lineal champion, and it's like it's hard to look for the lineal IWGP champion, lineal. I think there's a thing about the lineal WWE champion being someone else, but I don't know.
Well,
But
I think that kind of depends on how you define what a lineal championship even is,
yeah,
because it's in boxing there's very distinct rules for that, but in wrestling it's different because in wrestling we got four-way matches, triple threat matches,
yeah,
different rules and different eras for how a title can or can't change depending on what company you're in. So it gets a little nebulous there. I've never said this on my show, but since I'm here, I can kind of say this sort of unhinged. I think one of the biggest disservices that's ever been done in New Japan history when it comes to Tanahashi was the fact that he never did wrestle Brock Lesnar and he never did get to beat him for the title because he was supposed to.
yeah,
If it wasn't for the sex scandal shit in WWE and the black stain that's on Brock's like name right now, I would fucking love for him to be one of those guys that came over and worked Tanahashi at the end of his career and laid down for him. There's probably very few people that want that the same way I do.
I want
But
that.
like, I would just love for Brock to show up in the dome. I want it so bad. I want to see him eat a high fly flow.
Oh man, I want to see that.
Just imagine like Tanahashi going to Suplex City and just getting demolished, and coming from underneath. Like, oh my god, I would love that match.
Oh man, like I know you seen me post. I said like, what about Brock Lesnar? Do you think they can afford Brock Lesnar? Is the yen good enough for Brock? We see all these departures,
Probably
right?
not.
Yeah, so we see all these departures, right? And I'm like, okay, they could build up a nest to like just throw like a million at Brock's for him to like come in and like do the thing, do business, and cause I'm not afraid to say it, Brock is one of my favorite
We
performers.
had money to throw at Jericho. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, like you
Yeah,
throw like you like say, hey Brock, we got enough money so you could put another barn up on your thing with like, you know, because oh yeah, we got enough money. I mean, the Canadian and the yen, I don't know what he's collecting anymore, but he'd be someone that I'd love to see work one last match with Tanahashi because all Tanahashi would have to do is land on his head like 10, 15, 20 times. Then he comes back with like a twist and shout and then a couple like perfectly as much as he could hit sling blades and he hits the high fly flow. Ooh. Or like when Brock catches the high fly cross, turns it into an F5. And of course Brock has to come out to enter the Sandman.
I I remember talking to Rich about this a while back, and I told him like if because this is when Brock was rumored to be leaving the company and maybe
Yeah.
could go elsewhere. And I was like, I would love for him to go to Japan, wrestle Tanahashi, get a dome match, or him and Kenny, in AWA or in AEW when Kenny was on top. Because I'm like, I think Kenny could do I think both of those guys could do the short 5 to 8 minute Brock style match that he has now,
Yeah.
but make it mean so much more and get so much out of it. And both of those audiences, that formula to me works really well. But it's been done so much to death in WWE that their audience is over it. Plus, he's over the hill. Like the whole thing's done. But if he showed up in Japan or showed up on an AEW pay per view and did that with those two guys, it would be life and death, and the crowd would be eating it up, and it'd go down as like a top notch match. Like, I would love it.
Yeah. But one of my favorite matches is Danielson versus Lesnar, man. Because you have Danielson fighting from the bottom and doing
Hmm.
everything he can to survive, and he's I don't know if people notice, but like I'm big into like stuff like I'm big into MMA. I'm big into like Pride. I'm big into stuff like UWFI and rings. So like as far as like a modern day equivalent of that, like seeing Brian do hammer fist and try to lock in like an Omo from bottom, it's like that speaks to me because I love the sport of grappling. I competed in a couple of this is embarrassing. I competed in a couple of nagas. I did nogi and gi for like on or off for about like 11 years. So like whenever I see like people like say Brian or as much as it pains me, Zack Sabre Jr. do the transitions from like one hold to the next hold, and I see like that stuff speaks to me, and I know like that's boring for some people, but like I love that stuff if it's done well.
Yeah, and I think they both do it well. I also think that they both do a very, and you probably would agree with this, a very wrestling centric version of that sort of stuff. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily what you see like there's certain guys that do a more legitimate version of that stuff, and I think that those guys, I mean, you could tell like Zach and Danielson have cross trained. They have a good fundamental understanding of things, but they
yeah,
still really hold on to a lot of that like Billy Robinson showmanship. There's a lot of that world of sport kind
yeah.
of
A lot of the
flavor to what
holds,
they do.
yeah, a lot of the holds are like I see so much space in between it. But like when I see like somebody like
Yes.
Funaki and Suzuki when they get like the leg locks on, like those are like they're like 1 second away from like tearing an Achilles, and that makes me pop. I know like not a lot of
Yeah.
so like when I watch like people comment when I see like, heard those wrestlers pro wrestlers commentate on like those blood sport shows and like one guy has some other guy like in like a kilo, an Americana. Yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, the top over the top wrist lock Americana, and you're
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, this won't end the match," and I'm like, Oh, so you've never been in this
I
hold for
could.
real? You've never been in this hold where like you feel like your tricep is gonna be torn to shreds, and like a part of
Yeah,
me
I'm very
really
torn
hates
on.
that.
I'm very torn on Bloodsport.
Yeah, there's
I
some
think
guys
that
that are good and
sport
some
to
guys that are
me,
bad.
yeah, I think that in order for Bloodsport to work, like for shoot style in general to work on a broad basis, um, it's like a catch 22 because I don't think that shoot style can work in the States if it's promoted regularly all the time anymore. The same way it doesn't work in Japan. But the downside of that is in order for the guys to get good at it, they have to be doing it all the time. And there's only one or two shows a year, maybe three, where they get to do it and actually implement what they know how to do. So it's tough because some guys really get it and some guys really don't. You see some people that are really, really, really good at rolling or really, really good at striking, but they don't
Yeah,
know how to turn that into entertainment. You see some guys that are really good entertainers, they don't understand the fundamentals of fighting at all, so they're not able. There's only a few guys that I've seen do blood sport that I think are really good at doing both. Um, surprisingly, and I'll throw his name out there, and it's going to be shocking for me to say this. I think John Moxley is one of the best blood sport guys, but he's also one of the guys that knows the least about fighting that competes in the promotion at all. He's terrible. Like he's really really bad at striking and really bad at grappling,
yeah,
but he understands how to amp it up and turn it into a compelling wrestling match in a way that most, like for instance, like a Simon Grimm, who's a really good striker and really good grappler,
mm,
doesn't know how to turn his matches into something compelling. I think that Bloodsport to me is much closer in nature to like peak UWFI
mm,
than any of the other shoot promotions because it's not based in realism. It's based more in the kind of like the patry of like what Takada did. You know what I mean?
yeah. I think what we call it is bushido. Like having like for me like that style is you're living and dying based on believing that it's a fight, like it's a fight and these guys are trying to like
Hmm.
win. And like for me personally, when I get
Right.
back to like the psychology of what pro wrestling is, it's like not the holds you do, it's not the moves you do, it's like are you convincing me that you're trying to win this match? Like I know people like are
Yeah.
like they don't like Toru Yano, right? But to me, a Toru Yano match was exciting when he would hit like a double or a single, a high crotch, and get you into like a roll up. And because to me, like those kind of like rolls and pins are like exciting because he's trying to win this match and he's messing with your mentality by like you think that he's a goof, but he can actually just like take you down and put you in pretzels and fold you like a pizza. And like when I see like
Yeah.
stuff like who was I thinking about? Because like I know Kushida trains, and I know a lot of people like want to kind of like pretend that they're doing it, like Mox, right? And then you see like his tournament thing, and he doesn't have any idea what to do when he has top control and putting me on belly or like getting into side
He's in
control.
top.
He has the guy on bottom.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing.
Like there's a video out there. You don't
Yeah.
you don't have to see it. He has a guy.
I seen it.
Yeah,
He's on top of the dude. He has no clue what to do.
yeah. He could pass. He could do a pressure pass, but I don't know who his coaches are. But Mox, hit me up, bro. I could I can get you on your game like 100%. Cause like man, like he has top control for like I think like so much of the match, and then like he gets swept, and he has like no idea. How do you have no idea what you're doing from top? Like what's his coach drilling for him? That's besides the point.
Well, that's amazing too because it's like if anybody out there has access to good training, I mean, wasn't he living in Vegas? Didn't he train at Couture? I think.
Yeah, he said
I
he
mean,
allegedly
he's
trained at
good
a.
friends with
Yeah,
Josh Barnett.
you would think. Actually,
He's good friends.
yeah. I
He's
started
friends
out.
with Davy Boy. Like I don't.
Yeah. There's no excuse for that. I mean, he's when you look about his best friend Baron Corbin, like Baron Corbin is actually pretty legit with his jujitsu. I don't know if you ever seen those fight tapes of him doing winning at Naga, but he's like he uses those limbs to his. He's playing with people. It's pretty cool. I do have a funny story.
I was gonna say no. I've never seen him train.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen him train, but I could imagine. I'm built. I'm not quite as tall as Baron Corbin, but I'm pretty long like him, and that always helped me. Like when I trained, like I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I was the greatest. I really
Oh,
wasn't, but like
yeah.
I feel like in jiu-jitsu with long limbs, it does give, especially in the early stages, it gives you a lot of advantages that smaller people just maybe don't have, especially when it comes to like leg locks and throwing up arm bars, throwing up triangle choke, shit like that. So I could imagine big guy like him, as long as he is, like
Uh,
how he could probably assimilate into jiu-jitsu easily.
as a short limb guy, there's actually there's a tightness that you can get with the short limbs. I don't know, man. If we ever meet up, I can show you some
Yeah.
things. I know right now I sound like Stu Hart talking about stretching you out, but it's just like this is like some things like that they don't like. So I started with Josh at CSW in Fullerton, and
Mm,
he's a real interesting cat. He's a he's a really interesting dude, and as a coach and a teacher, he's very thorough and excellent, and he takes the time to like get to know you, your body shape, and your game. And like when it comes to jujitsu, people like kind of like think it's a one-all fix-all, but like everybody has different bodies, everybody has different kinds
no,
of physicality, and yeah. So man, when
I totally agree. I think that there's quite a few like smaller guys that are top notch. And when I say smaller, I don't mean height and uh, weight. I mean like their body makeup with shorter limbs. You look at Matt Serra as a perfect example. He's like one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners, and he's very like early and small.
yeah,
And, it's the same thing with fighting. I think that what I meant was in the early stages when you don't know what you're doing. I think being longer for my experience, it gives you some advantages early, but that can
yeah.
be negated very easily. And I've rolled with a lot of guys that were very compact and very small that like I couldn't do shit with.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That wasn't me threatening you with a matchup, because just saying, man. Yeah, so like my other question is like how'd you fall into New Japan?
Well, with New Japan, it's kind of an interesting path that I took to get there because I had a lot of exposures to it periodically throughout the years, but
Hmm.
I didn't always know what it was, because probably started with WCW and them bringing over Liger and then
Yeah.
having Muda in the early days and both those guys being New Japan guys, and sometimes they would have like video clips showing what they did in Japan, and you're like, what is that? And it was always, they're not going to show you like a clip from Corkin Hall. They always show you,
Tokyo Dome.
either the Fukuoka Dome or the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
So you're like, holy shit, like, what is that? It's this really well lit building with this blue mat, and the turnbuckles don't look the same as what I'm used to seeing. You know what I mean?
They're those
And
pads.
then, like the pads, and then the Steiner brothers come back, and they've got Japanese tag team titles, and you're like, what is that? Like, there's this whole other world of wrestling that sometimes the guys from Japan would come over. You'd see Chono, you'd see Liger, you'd see
Hashimoto.
Muto throughout the years, and then Hashimoto. Well, I don't think Hashimoto really worked WCW too much, did he? I know Fujinami did.
He did that tag team tournament, that international wrestler tag team tournament.
Oh, I've never seen that. That's funny. I have actually never seen Hashimoto in America except for like on the Indies after he left New Japan in like the early 2000s, but I'd
Yeah.
never seen him in a major league company over here. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. You should
Um,
check it out. I think like he's in his
well,
actually the Mongolian gimmick, that he had in like in Germany. But I know he worked like
I've
the.
never seen any of that.
Oh brother, we gotta talk, brother, about classic young Hashimoto, and then I think also Tenzan would also come by also. Tenzan, Nakanishi,
And
yeah,
yeah, he was. Yeah, Tenzan came by Nakanishi. Nakanishi was what Kurosawa, I think, was his
yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah. When
And
he showed up on WCW Pro, I was like,
they also
whoa, because I never seen like a Japanese
yeah
guy
they
with
had
that kind of
Kensuke
build.
Sasaki early on.
Yeah,
Yeah, they had a lot of the stars, and Inoki worked. He worked full time stuff like that. He
yeah,
also worked Foley, which is also interesting. So yeah, I mean, you had some exposure through those channels, and then my brother was a really accomplished martial artist, and he was really big into like the martial arts scene, and so he had like Black Belt, KO magazine, shit like that. And you always hear in wrestling circles about like tape trading that took place with pro wrestling. Well, there was
yeah,
tape trading that was going on back in the day with like Black Belt magazine and stuff. And people would trade like Chuck Norris tapes and Benny the Jet Araquita and all these different Joe Louis, the other Joe, the white Joe Louis, and they would also trade like shoot style like cross full contact tournaments. And it was kind of like when same thing with like tape trading in the States. Like you get a compilation, you don't know what you're getting.
yeah,
It's like made from all different stuff. And sometimes New Japan would show up on that and so would UWFI or UWF Reborn and stuff because it wasn't fully like completely known. Like, what am I watching? You also might get like forget what K1 used to be called, like Kaidoken or something like that, the
yeah,
original tournament. But like my brother would get these tapes, and there'd be like full contact. There'd be Muay Thai, there'd be full contact karate, and then maybe there'd be Inoki versus one of these wrestlers or one of these martial artists, and you're like, what the fuck is this? And like, so I did have some exposure to even seeing some of the shoot stuff early on, but not even. It actually took me years to realize later on that what we were watching. What happened is when New Japan World came out, I went back and I started watching some of the different style fights. I was like, oh, I saw this, and it was like literally like this doorway opened up because I'd seen these things. I didn't know what they were, where they had come from, and I was like, oh my god, my brother Armando had tapes of this shit, and we watch it. We're like, is this pro wrestling? Is this MMA? Like, what are we seeing? We don't even know. It's like it looks like MMA, but it's from the early like late 80s, like mid 70s. Like you don't know. So we saw some of that stuff. But really, for me to like fully get into Japan, it took the internet. Once the internet came around, and once the two big gateways were this a super not best super juniors, Super J Cup, 94, 95,
the
and
best.
the FMW tapes with Foley. That was the big thing, was watching Raw and Mick Foley being one of my favorite wrestlers, and then him getting ready to do these death matches with Triple H. They started showing the tapes from Japan, or at least clips from them, and I'm seeing him blown up by C4. I don't know what the fuck that is. Then you go online and you go through shady fucking channels and you find, the IWA
King of the Death Match.
King of the Deathmatch tournament and FMW stuff. And once the internet like existed and there was no one regulating what was on there, and you could find ways to watch these tapes, that opened up the door. Then Wikipedia came along,
Yeah,
and so did YouTube. And in the early days of YouTube, there's no copyright. There's no one taking anything down. So I just started like consuming as much wrestling, and like by that point, I knew what New Japan was. We'd kind of gotten an understanding of New Japan through their different affiliations with like TNA and stuff like that. So it was like I always kind of knew about it, and then like in the mid 2000s, like yeah, like around the mid 2000s, like after I got out of high school, I started kind of going back, doing deep dives. I know a lot. There's a lot that I didn't experience in real time still that a lot of other people have or did that I
Yeah.
could still fill those holes like even to this day.
Yeah,
But
man. That's pretty
I
sick, man.
would, I haven't like yeah, but like I never like fully committed to watching everything that New Japan was putting out
Hmm.
until we started doing Keeping It Strong style. Like I was from like 2010s to like 2016. I was watching regularly, watching the big shows, catching some road twos, seeing whatever I could on delay as it was coming out. Then um, when World came around, that became like a really great way to actually start following it. But when we made the decision to start doing Keeping It Strong style, that was when it was like, all right, fuck, I'm already watching a lot of this.
Hmm.
Now I need to watch all of it. Prior to doing the show, I was not watching everything, and now I have to watch everything. And it's like, fuck, I didn't realize what kind of commitment I was making 7 or 8 years ago when we decided to do the show.
Yeah, when you're watching for fun and consuming like as much as you can consume, it's different than when you have to like sit down, take notes, um, and prepare something like be
Yeah.
prepared to like dissect what's going on. Actually, you were saying like you didn't live it in real time. I actually did live it in real time. I was lucky enough to grow up next to a video store who the owners were Japanese, so they were able to import like laser disc. For children that don't know, laser discs were like giant, huge discs that you put into like what we did with a laser disc player. We was use it for karaoke, and so they'd have the laser disc, the VHS of like Super J Cup 95, 94. I would watch the commercial tapes from New Japan and All Japan and FMW because I guess the owner really loved pro wrestling, and so I was able to see like the big shows like Fukuoka Dome when there was like Hulk Hogan versus Muda, and that was I think that was like the first full on Japanese release that I actually watched because I saw Hulk Hogan on the cover, and I was like, bet Hulk Hogan. And as I go through like in 94, 95, 97, like you start to get I got like online, and then like my uncle who was also into like the lucha and all that stuff, he was also into the tape trading, so he would also get like tapes of like the tours. But I would have this video store up until 2003, and he would continually get like the compilation tapes from New Japan and All Japan, so that was cool for me. And then I think in about like 99 2000s I was able to watch it online because we finally got like the T1 cable in like 2000, 2001. So like the first things I was able to watch live was Kawada Kensuke at the Dome, and I watched that in real time. And I was following it on
Oh, which one?
the first one.
Oh,
So
okay. The Do Judge one.
yeah, yeah,
I think that's Do Judge. That's one of my all-time favorite New Japan matches. Like,
that
oh, incredible shit.
the lariat counter to the Gamangiri. Oh my god! And I remember that
Yes,
I was watch
that's
I was watching that on Real Player live at like it's probably like 2 3 a.m. And like I would be like, God damn, this is pro wrestling. This is what I watch. And I think back then the sites that was covering it was like Puroresu Fan, Puroresu Spirits, and that stuff was like,
Resu Spirit. Yeah.
yeah, dude, I was all in that, and you know, I was there, I was on the board, I was on DVDR, and like that kind of like kind of shaped you a little bit. And I had another question for you, bro. When did you first get online for the pro wrestling stuff?
So I'm trying to find this. I found it.
You found it?
Okay, so I saw a full. Well, what I'm looking for is because when you start talking, you mentioned seeing some New Japan shows. I did see a full New Japan show
Yeah.
way back in the day, but I couldn't remember what it was, and I pulled it up. I was able to figure out what it was. It was the '92 January 4th show, New Japan Super Warriors in Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
because I saw the whole show. It's not a great show,
Now,
but that's the one that has Sting and Muda against the Steiners.
I love that
The
match.
reason I remember it as a kid, that match rules. But the reason I remember it as a kid is my grandfather had. I don't even know how the fuck he would have taped this or gotten it to me. Like I literally, I'm kind of perplexed. Maybe he got it from the store
Yeah,
and copied it to a VHS. The match I remember is Big Van Vader versus Elegante, double count out. It's like it's a fucking terrible, terrible ass match. But I remember just thinking like, holy shit, this giant dude is so much bigger than Big Van Vader. And I was a big mark for stuff like that. I also really liked, like back in the day, I really really liked Elegante versus Undertaker from WrestleMania 9, which is just fucking god awful terrible, but like larger than life scary ass characters. I like that shit.
man.
So
Yeah,
I
dude.
saw that show. I saw the January 4th Tokyo Dome show.
Oh, okay. Like, so I've been talking about characters and stuff, and like, Giant Gonzalez with that outfit, man, or Undertaker with his
Bodysuit.
costumes, and then like you think about like the Steiners with their like uh, their Anne Frank, not Anne Frank, what's that Frank? Whatever
So
those
Frank.
Lisa Frank style singlets with Rick Steiner with those mismatched boots. I think about like those looks, and I'm like, man, because like so I was big into WCW when I was a kid because when Hulk Hogan lost the belt and then he didn't have the belt until WrestleMania. I think I was like looking for a new guy because for me, I hated Ric Flair because I'm a Sting kid, and I hated Bret Hart. So when I was actually able to like finally watch like a full on WCW, find them on cable and see like I think the first thing I saw was like a Saturday night, and then the like a couple days after something was like the beach blast because my dad at the time
Yeah.
had us installed with a black box. I don't know if people know what a black box is, but you get to watch all the pay-per-views and you get
Oh,
to
I know.
watch Playboy Channel, and for those out there that know, Spice Channel. So so yeah, so I
You know what?
go
You know
ahead.
what I used to do was
What's up?
we had a TV in one of our other rooms as a kid
Mm-hmm.
where we had cable, but when you had cable going through the house, you had the cable box, but then you still had cable running to the other rooms with outlets, but you couldn't get all the channels, but you could get some of the basic cable or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had a little TV, and I'd take it into that room like late at night, like a back room, nobody knew. I'd take it in there, and if you like went through the channels fast enough, you get to like where the pay-per-view channels are. And if you kept going back and forth, you might get the channel to actually pop up, but it would be scrambled, right?
Yeah.
Um, you would think I'd be using it to like watch Spice Channel, but you could do that. You could get like the Spice Channel to pop up even if you're not paying for it, but it would be scrambled. But you could like maybe see a titty, maybe
Ye-
hear a little like like some moans or whatever.
Yeah.
But really, what I used it for was like I would use it to watch ECW pay-per-views, like
Oh
in
yeah.
97, 98 when they started running them. Because my family, we would get WCW and the WWF pay-per-views, but I was not allowed to watch ECW because we were told that this was real. This was like way more like serious and way more violent and dangerous than what those other guys were doing. So on like Sunday nights, I'd go and I'd pull that shit up, and I'd like keep my ear next to the TV, and I'd be like listening, and I'd hear like how Taz and how Sabu were doing, and I couldn't see any of it. I could hear Joey Styles calling the fucking action, and like that's how I'd watch my ECW pay-per-views when they'd come out.
Man, I love ECW. I love those hardcore volume extreme. Was it extreme something? Volume 2, the Battle of the Bam Bams, and let's see. The night Kimono Wanalea danced atop the ECW arena. The- so,
Oh yeah, that's
so
that's a formative memory.
yeah,
But yeah, I loved those tapes. Like the tapes were usually not as good as the ads. You'd watch like ECW TV, and they would be like on the tape you'd see blah blah blah, and they'll show you like just the 1 second or like 5 second clip of Taz just constantly suplexing, like, say, the Dudleys and the tables, and you're like,
Yeah.
holy shit, I gotta see that. And you watch it, and it's like, it's not that good, but like they did such a good job hyping and advertising that stuff. You're like, oh my god, I gotta see this. I gotta see Chris Benoit break Sabu's neck. This looks incredible.
The Rey Mysterio Hoovy parking lot match, that was cool actually. That was the only thing that lived up to the hype was Ray and Hoovy and the doing like the right false count anywhere, and then Ray and Psychosis.
I think that's big ass Extreme Bash
Yeah,
'96. I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I like a lot of shit. I like ECW. But to answer your earlier question, you're asking about how I got online.
yeah.
We got off topic. So
It happens.
my family, like, we got the internet early, 95, 96. But I was pretty much still just like I was using it just to like look up like cheat codes for wrestling games and do some, I don't know, look up fan pages. I distinctly remember finding this really dedicated Angel Fire Kane fan page. I don't even know how the fuck I found it. It was back in the days like when the internet would take like a million years to like load.
Mm.
And like I remember like it took so much bandwidth to pull up this page because there's just flames everywhere and it's Kane. And I'm like, I don't know why the fuck someone loved Kane so much in 1997. But they did. So yeah, I mean, like those are some of my formative memories, but I wasn't like involved in the internet community really. I kind of lurked. Like you mentioned being in DVD, VR. Like I wasn't like part of those guys. I would go on and
Yeah.
read what everybody else was saying. Same thing with like Pro Wrestling Only. Same thing with like Wrestling Observer. Same thing with there's a bunch of other channels that are out there that I've been like part of. But I really never participated. I don't consider myself like part of a community. Really, just kind of used the internet as time progressed to like watch old shit and do a lot of research
Yeah.
and find rare stuff when it came available as much as I could. I'm not the most tech savvy person. Like if you ask me to go, I know I've got plenty of friends where if I'm like, I want to watch this match, how do I do it? They can go and they can like torrent shit and they know how to navigate these channels. And I really was like a novice when it comes to things like that. We got this Discord channel. You're part of it. I can't keep up with it. Like literally, like there's so much activity. Like I'm like, this is fucking insane. I don't know how people spend their days and times like on here. I'm working all the time. So I, even to this day, I don't feel like I'm part of a community. I might throw a post up or, read a comment and have a response. The most involved I've probably ever been was about 10 years ago. Guys that primarily run Social Suplex with me, James, Rich, Jeremy, myself. We had started. Well, I guess that's the funny thing is like I'm the tag along in all this shit. Like not almost very little of what we do was ever my idea. I just happened to be right place, right time, and connected.
Okay.
They're like, yeah, let's get you on because most of them came up with all this shit, but they started a Facebook group that we still have, but since it's just you and me, I don't know who's going to hear this, but like our Facebook group is basically dead. It used to be very vibrant. There was like literally hundreds, thousands of people all the time, constantly on there, messaging. It was pretty much WWE centric because they still had the monopoly. This is like way before, New Japan blew up in the States, way before AEW. And I'm pretty involved on Facebook. Facebook's pretty easy to navigate, but
Yeah.
I'm not really like an internet guy, really. Like I don't spend that much of my time on any of our channels. If I pop in to like respond to something, I pretty much just pop out. Like I'm not that tech savvy. I'm a busy person. I have a lot of other like interests and things that I do other than just wrestling. But my wife would say the opposite. She'd say anytime she sees me on the phone, she'll creep up on me and she'll like look at me on the phone and she'll try to figure out what I'm doing and like she thinks someone would be like creeping on a girl's page or some shit like that or like doing something I'm not supposed to do. And she's like, you're just on Cage Match. You're just always on Cage Match. It's all your fucking like. Every time I look at your phone, you're just reading about pro wrestling. Like she's like, you have an addiction. And
That's what my wife says
be
too.
Worse. I could be doing.
Like she was like, "Oh, you think like I'd be doing something that's wrong, but like it's always." She looks at my phone and is like, "Oh, what are you watching?" No, I'm not on Pornhub. I'm on like YouTube. and I'm looking at like, and I'm watching like Jerry Lawler get run over by a car, and like,
Like,
it.
why are you watching this clip of why are you watching this clip of superstar Billy Graham and Dusty Rhodes locked in a bear hug for 5 minutes? Like, this is fucking weird.
What is
I
this?
like my wife is almost like, I would rather you be watching porn at this point. Like, why are you watching this?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like she gets like, oh, why are you so obsessed with this stuff? What is it about this? Are you leaning that way? I mean, like, because another thing is like, I'm a huge body guy, right? So when like I'm watching stuff, I'll see like
Yeah,
who's a really ripped dude, right? Like, cause so I'll watch like say like a Paul Roma match, right? And she's like, "Why are you watching this?" I was like,
yeah.
Look at his deltoids. Look at his neck. Look at that. That's a beautiful man. That's a beautiful man with a beautiful body." Or like, or like I'm watching Pac, and she's like, "How come you're so into this guy?" I was like, "Look at him. Look at that guy. Look at how jacked he is. Look at how moisturized he is. Look at that guy, and he can do all these flips." And it's just like, but I digress.
See, I'm not so much a body guy, but maybe a little bit. Like, I know you'd mentioned to me the other day that you just recently watched Magazine Dreams. So like
Yeah,
I popped that up on the Flick store, which full disclosure, I steal all my movies. Well, I
allegedly,
pay for them, but I paid for
allegedly,
them through an illegal Russian channel,
allegedly,
allegedly. But
allegedly.
yeah, I popped that movie up and watched it, and I was actually really torn at whether I should. Is like, Jonathan Majors. I'm pretty sure he is a piece of shit who beats women.
Yeah,
But at the same time, I heard like this was a nearly Oscar worthy performance. I was
he,
like, maybe I should I don't know, give it a shot. So I watched.
yeah,
What's that?
yeah. Go ahead. You watched it?
But what I was saying though is that I watched the movie and we're watching it and my wife was like, "This is so fucking bleak." She's like, truly an incredible performance from Jonathan Majors, but like,
It's a
this is
depressing
so
movie, man.
disturbing. She's like, this is one of the most, not only is it depressing, but it's like literally disturbing, like how deep into his psyche and everything it gets. But it's like one of the greatest, one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. She's like, I thought Arnold was. I was like, well, yeah, I like Arnold and him and Ronnie Coleman. She's
Yeah,
like, the fuck? She's like, you're not into bodybuilding, and I was like, yeah, I'm not, but I know those guys.
yeah. Ronnie
They're like the three
Coleman.
big. Like, I know them.
Yeah, you got Ronnie Coleman. You got Arnold. You got who is that guy? Gary Stridham. Look at the striation. And then like part of that movie too is like, so I don't know who's gonna listen to this. This is probably gonna come out whatever, but like he's a second generation bodybuilder trying to live up to his dad, right? And like you kind of like have like a bit of a wrestling kind of thing, because he also talks about like watching SmackDown and WCW, and like how like he loves like he like listens to
He
like
did.
metal.
I was so shocked by that.
Yeah, that he's like, oh yeah, oh, well Thursday is like is a great day because that used to be the day that SmackDown come on. You got The Rock, and then I watch wrestling like there's Sting, and then there'll be Woe, and Thursday's a great day for me. And like I was confused, like because like he doesn't, there's nobody has a smartphone throughout the whole movie, right? So like he's doing all these phone calls with like a house phone with a landline, like, and it's not even like a new like portable phone. It's like an old phone. So I was like, okay, maybe this takes place in the '90s, right? Because if you watch it, like all the cars are like old, and then like later on in the
No,
movie,
it's
yeah, yeah, you see him like on a laptop, and then you see him like see people with the smartphones. You're like, oh shit, this is like supposed to be a modern time thing. I like, so I was like, but yeah, that movie is. I recommend it to
well,
people because like it's
what's the
good.
what's the dude that he idolized? He's played by
Baby,
Mike O'Rourke. He's like a top fitness model
yeah,
who
he used to
he
be
was supposed
on.
to compete in Bloodsport in Japan.
Yeah, and he was also like in that was a Battle Bowl, a battle or something. with Terry Crews, and he
Yeah,
showed
yeah,
up in
yeah. With
WCW.
the Terry Crews people.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah, man, that dude is
yeah. And
like
I think he
57,
was
bro,
also in.
and he looks
I
like that.
know. I think he's in the same. I think he was also part of the Gladiators reboot in like
Yeah,
2012. I think as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
But my wife just knows him from the memes
yeah.
from TikTok because he's a big TikTok guy. They like make all these videos of him, and she always shows them to me, and I don't fucking get them, but whatever. But anyways, in the movie, he plays a character that, and I guess spoiler alert for anyone that's listening, might want to skip ahead, but he plays a character that Jonathan Major's character like idolizes and is
Yeah.
writing and sending all these letters to, and then later the dude calls him, and I told my wife as soon as that happened, I was like, oh. This is a rat call. That's what this shit is. She's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, dude's been writing him for months. He's never responded. He's never messaged him, never taken any time to reach out to him. Then when he's in town, tells him, "Do you want to come by?" I was like, "This is what wrestlers do with their rats. They
Oh,
they don't ever talk to them, and then when they are in town, they call the rat." And she's like, "He's not trying to fuck him." I was like, "He is trying to fuck him. Is what is happening here." I was like, "Trust me when I tell you this. I know pro wrestling. This is a
yeah,
pro wrestling movie. He's gonna try and fuck this dude."
yeah.
And then guess what happens? A few scenes later, there's Jonathan Majors crying, hunched over the bed, and Mike O'Rourke's naked, and it's all implied. They don't show anything, but I was like, "I told you. I told." And she's like, "I'm so glad that you are only into the Japanese wrestling and not Western wrestling because that is so disgusting." She's like, "At least in Japan, they must have honor." And I don't have the heart to tell her how bad Japanese wrestling can be.
Shout out Jeff Cobb. Um, shout out Naito. Shout out Despy. Uh,
But yeah, yeah. I mean, so that's kind of, yeah. I thought that shit was funny, and I was doing some wrestling training a while back, and like that was one of her biggest concerns. She's like, "I don't want you to get hurt, and I don't want you to be around these fucking carny, seedy people." Because like my wife does. I'm lucky enough to where she actually does like wrestling. She grew up a era fan. She was a big Jeff Hardy girl,
ooh,
and really idolized like Lita and like Trish Stratus and shit like that. So she knows a lot about wrestling. We don't. I think her being with me has kind of diminished some of her love for wrestling because I'm too smarky, and she's like, she grew up on the Fed. She really loves Bray Wyatt, and I've kind of like peeled back the curtain too much, and I've also talked about wrestling too much to the point where she's just like, she gets it, she knows what it is, she likes it. We'll watch pay-per-views, but she does not want to talk with me about it like at all.
she,
But
yeah,
when I
that's
was when I started training, she was like, I don't want you to be around these people.
because they're
She's
gross.
like, I know what wrestlers are. Yeah, she's like, I know what wrestlers are, and you're a good person, and I don't want you to be around fucking carnies who are, horrible human beings. And I'm like, I'm not, but I was, but I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, like she just loves you, man. She loves you. When my
Yeah.
wife, my wife didn't find out I liked wrestling until about 3 years of dating and being, and then like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I was in the closet, man. You kidding me? I had to secure the bag before that came out, and the only reason that came out is because my brother, like we would have like these like WrestleMania parties, right? And so like my wife comes
Yeah.
in and she's like, "What is this? Oh, you're inviting me to this?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah. We just like hang out, we eat some food, and like, what are you watching? What is that? Is that like UFC?" Because like she knew back then I liked UFC, right? It was like, "Oh, it's gonna be UFC," but then it was like I think
Right.
it was like WrestleMania, what was it 25 or something, and then she was just like, "Oh, okay. Oh, so you watch this?" Like that was her thing, and then fast forward a couple years, Total Divas comes on, and then she's like, I guess she was watching it on her own, and then she's like, "Oh, do you want to go to a show?" I was like, "Yeah." So we ended up going to SummerSlam 2013. She saw Brock Lesnar, who she knew from UFC, and she's like, "Oh, he's in this now," and yeah, but nowadays she like doesn't want it on the TV, or she does watch it. She'll watch like the ladies matches, and then she's out after that because she's like really into like having like female powerful figures and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
anything else, she's like, "What is this? Oh, who is that? Okay, so that's TJ, and that's why is TJ there?" And then like, okay. So anyway,
Well, it's
going on.
funny. My wife is much more. My wife is much more accepting of the idea of having wrestling on the screen because she knows what it is and
Yeah,
she understands that that it's a cooperative thing and it's entertainment and she knows it's very painful and all that, but she also knows that they're not actually trying to hurt one another.
oh yeah,
She has a big issue with me watching boxing or any sort of like MMA, which I'm like you mentioned at the start of the show. I'm a huge fan of all that stuff. Which I actually say at this point in time, I watch far less of all that than I used to, just because I think the barrier for entry is a lot more. It's way more difficult to stay up on those sports and be involved with how fragmented boxing is these days, and then also with the UFC, like how monopolized it's become, and there's so few stars, and the cost involved with being involved with
it's
it.
like
Plus,
120 per a
not to
pop.
get super
That's
political,
crazy.
but it's extremely MAGA.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I had a friend ask me, I had a friend ask me the other day, and he's like, do you want to split this the Volkanovski pay per view? And I was like, I don't want to spend $40 to watch that show. It's not a show that's worth watching for $40. So I don't watch as much of it as I used to, but I do watch it still pretty regularly. And she comes in and she's like, if she sees, and this is a big reason she doesn't like AW, even though they've toned this down because they did so much of it early on.
yeah,
She's like, I don't like AW because of the blood. There's so much violence. She doesn't like that shit, and then she doesn't want to watch MMA or boxing because it's so violent. She's like, it's human cockfighting. This is barbaric. These people are trying to kill each other, and I'm like, but that's what I like.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. My wife was actually she was into the MMA because she got in like with me because I was big into MMA. I was big into no holds barred. So like my wife got into it
Hmm.
because like at the Strikeforce, Ronda, she was big with Ronda because Ronda was a
Yeah.
phenom at the time, did arm bars, and like she had a couple of her favorite fighters like BJ Penn. She liked John Jones before all of this. And then like yeah, when you get into UFC now, it's like it's basically a GOP rally and like you see them parade Trump out there. You got Joe Rogan, you got Elon Musk out there. Shout out to WrestleMania because I think we're about to see some big cameos this weekend. Um, and like yeah, like that kind of part
Yeah.
does drive me away
I
from
I,
it,
I
man.
used to,
Because like I don't want to hear about like
me too. And
I just want to see people fight.
I'm the same way. Like I don't really bring up my politics much on my show or anything like that. My friends, I would say most of the people that are involved in our network are extremely, far. I wouldn't say far left, but I'd say progressive and liberal for sure. And
Hmm.
I have tendencies that go that way, and I would kind of consider myself more of like a centrist or someone. I don't know. I'm ill defined. Maybe close to like a what are those fucking people called? Like a oh my god, what is it? I forget words on the air sometimes, and it's like I know what the fuck I'm trying to say. Um, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
like I'm not a Republican, but I'm probably not a Democrat either. I have views that probably skew both ways. But I'm like you, where I don't want to hear about politics. About in most of my entertainment when it comes to like wrestling and fighting, and especially the atrocities that are taking place in our country right now under this administration.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find it stomach turning to see what's happening,
I have
and
to.
then to turn around and
Yeah.
parade those people that are on the screen. I don't fucking get it. Well, I guess I do get it. I know what it's about. It's about money,
Yeah.
but I still think it's like morally fucking wrong. And that's what, like, I told my buddy. I was like, I don't think I can give money to those people
Yeah. I
to support what they're doing.
no. No, I can't. I can't. I know like a couple of my friends like they'll call me like I stand up for WWE, but like there's some guys I just like in there, but like when I don't really like going into when I find out like what they're doing, and I'm just like I can't really watch that. Like my because my sibling and my cousin they're going to WrestleMania this weekend, and I was like, nah, I can't do that. I can't give them my money. I can't morally I can't do that because you know, man, I have to tell my father-in-law, I have to tell my uncles, my aunts, like, hey, when you go out to the grocery store, speak English. Speak English or don't talk at all. And if you see people coming with those vests, just walk away because they're not going to give you the chance. And like, I know, like,
No,
you're
they're
brown, I'm
not.
brown. We know like
I know what the
if we go to the wrong place, we'll get scooped up by ice, and they won't even ask us any questions, bro. That's
well,
not
I
funny.
was joking
But
with friends on the network, and I was joking with friends on the network, and I was like, yeah, I'm white when it's convenient, and I need to be. You know, if someone comes trying to talk to me, like I'm white, but like really I'm not. Like I'm my whole family on my mom's side, we're all Hispanic, we're all Mexican, Puerto Rican, and Native American,
yeah,
and I've got a lot of family, you know, in Texas and in Detroit where like there's been a lot of big ice raids, and like that is a literal real concern that we have too. Where I'm like, they'll just come fucking scoop you now,
yeah.
and
They don't even care
there's
if
no
you
due
have an
process.
accent. They don't care if you like speak English. They're not
No,
gonna check your papers. They can just detain you, and that shit, that shit makes me like sick to my stomach, and to like see like companies like TKO, Endeavor, UFC, WWE, they support that kind of ideology. It's just like, how can you support this? And I know like stuff like that, and that's just like stuff like it's interesting to go into, but like you kind of like go like, yeah, how could I? How can you watch this? But you know, like at the end of the
I
day,
mean, you know, devil's advocate. Like I know that you know with wrestling, a lot of the wrestlers have terrible views. They're
yeah,
terrible people. They've done horrible things. Same thing with fighting. It's always going to be the case where like people, and same thing in entertainment. You know, with movie stars and everything. Like
you just don't
you're
want to
not gonna
know.
agree politically with everybody.
Yeah, I just don't want to know about
But
it.
like the thing is, like I know that.
Yeah,
It, for me, I kind of draw the line when it's like right, one person's individual actions or what they're doing, and maybe that's not even the right way. I don't claim to have all the right answers, but when it's like when it's a full on government administration doing something that is pervasive and everyone can see it, nobody's doing any fucking thing about it, and it's scary, and you're like, what the fuck do we do as a country? Like this is horrible. And then you know I'm in Florida, so you can just imagine like what that's like. Like everybody here is like they're cool with it, like they love this dude, and
yeah.
that's not good.
I'm in
And
California. You know, I'm from LA, so like
oh yeah,
you get like some like pockets of stuff like that. Like you go to Orange County and you have like a pocket of people that agree with that stuff. But for the most part, it's just like
sure.
yeah, man. It's a you know it's a different writing world, and this is why I'm talking to you. You're from Florida. I've talked to a couple guys from New York, from Puerto Rico, a guy from Portugal, a guy from Germany. You might know them, and like it's cool to get like all these different like you know stories about how people got into this stuff because what I like about what I'm trying to do here is trying to connect fans at a point like because everybody will have their disagreements. Nobody's gonna like the same thing. No one's gonna think all the same things. But at the end of the day, there's something that will connect you as people. And for me and you, in this instance, it's pro wrestling,
Yeah,
MMA, combat sports, and yeah,
I
man.
think with me and my fandom right now, it's I'm kind of in a precarious place, honestly,
Mhm.
because I find myself not necessarily connecting too much with a lot of the Western products that exist,
Oh no,
and
American pro
it's
wrestling
weird
sucks.
because
American pro
well, you
wrestling
know, the
sucks
thing
to
is
me,
like
man.
most of my friends really hate WWE. You know, most of my friends don't like WWE. I'm not a big fan of WWE like, almost at all, and that has nothing to do with politics. Just from literal, just the creative.
The creative,
It's
the
not for
work.
me.
I'm
But
just.
I'll still turn it on for the pay-per-views. I'll still tune into that shit. But more and more, I find myself trying to watch AEW, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm on a boat on my own because it's not for me. Like last night, they had that big show, and I was like, I'm going to tune in for that show. There's some of these matches look really incredible,
Yeah.
and I think that this is going to be a top-notch show. And it's getting all the praise in the world. But when I turned it on, I was like, dude, I don't fucking connect with this like at all. Like this is not what I want to see out of my professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I feel like
It's something that you
that
would
show
like.
was very match heavy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people probably would look at that show and say it's very match heavy, kind of sports centric. That's what you want. But like, I don't know. When I watch Western wrestling, I kind of want it to be Mid South.
You.
I don't want it to be like a modernized version of like Mid South or like Memphis. And I really enjoyed AEW when it was primarily, we still had really great wrestling, but it was primarily a promotion. They
Yeah.
had the best talkers in the ring doing the best shit, and that's not what it is right now. So it doesn't connect with me. And like, I was in the Discord and I was like, guys, this show's not that good. And everyone's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I'm not.
Nah, you're not that crazy, man. Cause like outside of like so Takeshi the Osprey, like they pretty much had like a dome match, uh, in at near the end of the show, and that was great. That was good. I love Takeshita, as you know, and like, but when it comes to like American pro wrestling, what I look for is the personal side of things, the grudges,
Yep.
the Memphis Heat. I know, like, we talked about this because I'm a big evil guy. I love House of Torture because there's heat there, and there's like actual like he's doing this to piss people off because he doesn't. He's rebelling against what he was supposed to be. To me, that's the narrative to me
All right.
because I
So
know not a lot of people like
this is
House of
where we got to
Torture, but
get
I
this.
do.
We got to get, but we have to get this part out of the way, okay? Because I'm being full-fledged serious here.
Yeah.
I've always thought you were trolling. I didn't actually think you liked Evil in the House of Torture. I've always thought it was a bit.
Oh no, dude! Like, so when Watanabe came over here, like he would do like shows like
Yeah.
in Texas, right? And then I'd like see them because that's where he'd do a lot of his work, and then he'd show up on like ROH TV back when they were on like, what was that? They were on the same channel as TNA before.
HDNet.
Yeah, yeah. So like he'd come on and like
Oh yeah, they were on what was
whatever.
that? They were on the Destination America.
Yeah, they were on Destination America, and I think they were also ROH was also doing bigger numbers than TNA at the time, which is funny to me. So like on the ground level, like when I saw Watanabe, like how he worked, it's like he reminds me of like like the heavy hitters like a Tenzan, the Kensuke, like that was his style. And when he came up with Lij and they did the tag team, I know you're not the biggest fan of Sonata. Okay, me liking Sonata, that's kind of a bit, but also I think he's an attractive man. That's probably most of it. But when I think about like that and like how when he does his promos and the reactions he gets are like they're like what I would expect in America, and there's something about him and that act that speaks to me because when I think about what I look for in wrestling and I think about like the guys I like Eddie Guerrero in '97 WCW, and he'd like tell everybody to kiss his butt, and or like Chris Jericho with the list of grievances he'd had and like just trying to annoy and jab at people, or like again I like that kind of stuff where I like hear a heel and like they're purposely jabbing at people but not really using cheap heat but like antagonizing people, trying to get them to just like give them all the hate that he wants. And like you watch the matches, you hear the heat that Evil would get during those matches, and like he's doing something there in Japan that not really anybody else has been doing for a long time. Like I think the last guy to kind of really do this kind of heel work was Onita, and that crowd really hated Onita back then. Sorry to go on that tangent.
Uh, I would make an argument for Minoru Suzuki.
Oh yeah, yeah, him too. Him too. Like I hate the murder grandpa nickname because like he's like only in his 50s. He'd be like a murder dad. I don't get that. Like I think that's like okay, this might be like a little bit mean, but like I think some white guy named him that, and then so like when everybody would say, "Oh, these large lads" and all this stuff, that just how it caught on, and then like I hate that nickname because like he's the king, he's the king, he's the king of pancrase,
Yeah.
and like show your respect to this guy, even though his matches with Ken Shamrock were dubious, and but like
I feel like I feel like for me, I'm kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of different kind of fandoms. Like
yeah,
I can I can talk with the Smarks and like the really diehard indie fans that are around today. I can talk with like the Puro elitists. I can have conversations with these, you know, these guys that are only into catch and that are only into shoot style. And they only want the hyper realism, or those fans who only like lucha, or fans that only like 1970s, slow psychology based wrestling. I can talk with all of them, but I don't fit in with any one specific particular sect. I kind of agree with a lot of things that these people feel about wrestling or see about wrestling, but I also
yeah,
disagree with a lot of them.
yeah,
So I oftentimes kind of find myself like off on an island when it comes to my views, my feelings about wrestling. But which has always kind of been the case. I think I'm a little bit of a contrarian, but the biggest thing is, um, other than Japanese pro wrestling,
yeah.
there really isn't too many products that I just fully am bought in on and connect with. A lot of the time, I'm kind of just sort of like cherry picking most of the other brands and companies that are out there in terms of like what actually connects with me as a fan. You
Yeah,
know?
because I mean, like, um, I feel like with you, man, I got a kindred spirit because I watch pretty much whatever whatever I can find that's entertaining to me, and that's not like limited to a company. Like, because I'll watch a Dragon Gate show, and I'll watch a Zona 21 show, and I'll watch All Japan. Champion Carnival is pretty good right now, actually. And it's just like you pick and choose what speaks to you, and that's kind of what I miss nowadays is like the variety that you would get. Like if you watch a Nitro from like '97, you get like this variety and like styles and characters that you don't get nowadays because everybody today just feels so samey, and it's kind of a bleak output, but like there's some like shining stars in today's pro wrestling that I can see, like the tall handsome man Yuma Anzai, and like a guy like Shun. I think you guys said like on your podcast that like Shun Skywalker and Takeshita, like when they had that was it Unified Japan Pro Wrestling or whatever, like you see
Yeah.
Takeshita in that ring with that in that 6-man tag, and like it's obvious like that he's the star among all the stars, and it's like it's hard nowadays to like find that connection with people, and usually like it feels kind of like a little bit manufactured, like yeet, and and like that's what I like about pro wrestling is when you get like it being sincere and being like feeling real in some kind of ways. And that goes on to say, man, I got a question. Who is your favorite wrestler or wrestlers? Top three.
Yeah, I can definitely answer that. Doc, give me 2 seconds. I need to step out. I'll be right back in.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'll walk alone inside this bitter danger. I swallow down 1,000 years of anger. And we're back.
Yeah, I had to step away there for a second. Just my my wife came in and I needed to help her with the bag. Plus, she brought me a little Starbucks treat. But
Ooh,
answer the question that you asked me. My favorite wrestler. That's a really tough call. I've got a lot of wrestlers that I've loved over the years.
yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, like Hogan, Warrior were kind of like my guys. I went through a phase where Lex and Sting were like my top guys as well, right? And then I think I would say like throughout most of my adolescence, it would have been like probably like that Sean, but really like the first person I attached myself to like this is the person I like better than everybody else, and I've never liked anybody else this much. Is probably Mick Foley. Um,
I love
Especially
Cactus
like
Jack.
going back through his whole catalog and understanding like Cactus Jack is just one. I think he's super underrated in so many aspects, even to this day. When you go back and you watch Mick Foley, like he obviously has the reputation for being a
Stuntman.
you know yeah, like a stuntman wrestler. But when you go back and you see the work and see how good he was at almost every aspect of professional wrestling, like he's just fucking amazing. When Inoki has to be up there for me. Flair has
Yeah.
to be up there for me.
Hmm.
Tanahashi is one of my all-time favorites. So it's tough. Like I have connections with a lot of different wrestlers.
Hmm.
Hashimoto is one of my absolute all-time favorites. Um, and then there's other guys. There's other guys that I like that are like like I like Steve Gray from World of Sport. I think he's fucking phenomenal. I really like there's just too many. There's too many to name. Like I have a lot of wrestlers that I really 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 like
Yeah.
that I connect with. I say more that I like than dislike, honestly.
And like my guy was my two guys were Sting because I was a little Stinger, and in '93 his big rival was Cactus Jack. So Cactus Jack, Sting, they were those are my two guys, and seeing Mick Foley grow to the heights that he did, it really inspired me. And I always go into a Foley impression as opposed to other wrestlers because he was my guy because he was a big fat dude that would fall on his head and he'd come back for real, and like there's a rawness to like how his strikes were, and people don't like talk about like how his punches look. Like he was trying to he was punching himself in the face, but he was also punching the other guy and trying to make the other guy like
He,
it always looked like real when he would throw his punches. Like he wasn't trying to
he's
break
one
his
of the
hand.
best punchers in the business. He doesn't get credit for it.
Yeah, it's not even like it's not a work. It's not like a work punch. It's like the way he would punch people is like how you would try to punch someone without trying to break your hand, and like he'd throw like those rapid punches in the corner, or like just throw out like a jab in the middle when he's trying to trade strikes with like say like an Austin, or when he's there with Terry Funk and they're just like punching each other and hitting each other with like flaming chairs and stuff. It's just like there's something
Yeah,
about Foley that like always to me as a performer as a performer as a wrestler that just like he's got something, and there's also like a technical wrestling aspect of him that people kind of just like brush off, but like when he would get on the mat and like kind of just like trade like he would do switches, right? He'd sit out, switch, and get to the other guy's back, and he'd do that like he did that with Shawn Michaels. He did it with a couple other guys, and he made it look like flawless. Cause, but
dude, Brett.
it's kind of like it's an underappreciated part of his game, and Yeah, man. Like you were talking earlier, like how you want like wrestling to be like you want American wrestling to be like mid South. You want it to have be like these two guys go in there, they have like this whole big problem, and it's not like a whole long narrative. It's just like these two guys hate each other and they're gonna try to beat each other up and they're gonna try to fuck each other over by any means. And yeah, man, that's
Yeah.
what I feel is like missing in wrestling right now. But yeah, it's when I think about like people trying to think about their favorite wrestlers, and you listed like Inoki, Sting, Luger, um, Hashimoto, you see like the varieties in there, and to me, like I always think like variety is the spice of
So,
life, you know?
so here's something. When I was starting to train, anyone that's listening does. Maybe people know, they don't, but I trained at the Side Dojo, so Matt Seidel's school. And I just went back and looked through our text from like 5 years ago, and I was totally being facetious, but I told him, I was like, all right, so here, he was like, what are some of your goals for wrestling? And I was like, all right, Matt, this is what I want. I was like, I want to wrestle like Steve Gray, Nick Bockwinkel, Brian Danielson, El Dandy, Billy Robinson, Katsuyori Shibata, Mike Quackenbush, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Volkan, Mick Foley, and Kenta Kobashi just rolled into one.
That's a
And he was like,
that's quite a creative
yeah, that's
wrestler.
great aspirations. He's like, we could definitely get you there. Oh
Hey
yeah,
man,
I mean, like that. Those are some other names there that I'm big fans of that I didn't list.
yeah, yeah, and like I I gotta ask this question because for for every meal there comes an end, and at the end of that meal there's dessert. And my question for you is, what's your favorite dessert?
Um, I'm a big dessert guy, so pretty much anything, literally. But, usually, if it involves ice cream on top of a baked good, so if it's like chocolate lava cake or those bazookies,
I
something like
love
that. But I mean,
Pazookies.
big fan of tres leches cake,
Oh,
churros.
mm.
Um, I don't know anything. Bananas Foster. I'm like really not that picky. Cheesecake, cannolis, and anything literally.
Oh,
I love it all. Like I don't think I've ever run into a dessert that I don't want. The only thing I don't like about dessert is if it's not something substantial. I don't want an airy, fluffy like mousse. Like it might taste good, but it's not gonna leave you feeling satisfied. I need something with a little bit of to it.
oh yeah. Because the mousse is just like a topping on a cake. What is a mousse?
Yeah, it's not enough.
Yeah, man. So I hate to do this, but like we can come back to this some other time. But I like to like thank you for coming on my show and like spending this time with me and coming on here and being able to chop it up with someone that has the same interest that I do. As far as like looking at the combat sports, as far as looking at the history of this of combat sports and pro wrestling, someone that appreciates the finer elements of pro wrestling and like yeah, man, it's cool to like talk to somebody that's also a generational fan. Um, do you want to tell people where to catch you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you don't know, I am one half of Keeping It Strong Style. We are one of, if not the longest running episodic New Japan weekly podcast on the internet. We are a proud member of the Social Suplex Podcast Network. You can find our show on literally any streaming channel that's out there. Just look up Keeping It Strong Style. We record every Monday, so we drop every Tuesday, and we cover everything in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So, the news, listeners' questions, we review, preview all the shows, cover all the latest that's going on. So, like Naito just left. We haven't really even touched that. That just dropped like yesterday. Him and Bougie are both gone. So I'm sure on the next episode, which will be Monday, that will be a huge topic and a big talking point. So you can catch us there. And you can also dialogue with us. Our Discord channel is Social Suplex. You can jump in there, Doc's in there, and chat with us about anything wrestling related. There's a ton of different topics in there. You can also dialogue with us on Reddit. My co-host Jeremy, he is the Pro Black Guy. I'm keeping it strong style on there. We're also on Facebook at the Wrestling Squared Circle. You can find our shit on YouTube, literally anywhere. And there's a lot of good new podcasts out there. I personally, I've listened to them all, and I'm grateful for what they all do. But I do think that ours is the best, unbiasedly. Well, I guess it is biased because it's my show, but I do think it's the best. And we've been going for around 8 to 9 years now, and there's no signs that we're going to be stopping anytime soon. So we'd
Don't
love
stop.
for you guys to come give us a listen and check us.
Thank you, man. I want to say that your show is the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be of New Japan coverage. And yeah, man, this is an honor, honestly.
I'll also say this: I do appreciate you having me on here, Doc.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too: there's a lot of stuff that I know that you and I could have definitely talked about that we didn't have time to talk about. We didn't even really get into too much dialogue about stuff or MMA or anything of that nature. So
Yeah.
or even classic New Japan. So I'm sure, in the future we could probably do this again. I don't have all the time in the world to come on too constantly, but I'm sure somewhere down the line there will be room for us to dialogue once more. And I definitely enjoyed it and had a pleasure, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. You guys have the best show. You guys have such. I mean, the whole network is good, but like, I've been listening to you guys for like the whole time. I would even go on the Reddit and I'd leave comments. That one guy who would always ask you about how big Despy's dick is, that was me. So, yeah, man. I,
I don't. You know what? I don't even remember that, but that's hilarious.
yeah, I think I sent you that question like about like 8 times throughout the whole year. But yeah, man, it's really a big honor for you to give me this time, because I know the only thing real in life is the miles and the money. So yeah, man, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully we get to talk some other time, man.